while the outsourcing of jobs from north to south, from east to west, while a lot of that was a dominant trend in the late 20th century, the biggest challenge to workers in countries like mine today is technology. And the biggest challenge for your new president, when we think about how we're going to employ more people here, is going to be also technology, because artificial intelligence is here and it is accelerating. And you're going to have driverless cars, and you're going to have more and more automated services. And that's going to make the job of giving everybody work that is meaningful tougher. And we're going to have to be more imaginative. And the pace of change is going to require us to do more fundamental reimagining of our social and political arrangements to protect the economic security and the dignity that comes with a job. It's not just money that a job provides. It provides dignity and structure and a sense of place and a sense of purpose. And so we're going to have to consider new ways of thinking about these problems, like a universal income, review of our work week, how we retrain our young people, how we make everybody an entrepreneur at some level. But we're going to have to worry about economics if we want to get democracy back on track.
We like to think that people get what they deserve. If you work hard and make the right decisions, you should have a good life. So if it doesn't work out, we feel like it's our fault. But 43 million Americans, including 15 million children, live in poverty. I don't think it's all their fault. The job market is like a game of musical chairs, and since we depend on employment to stay out of poverty, it's like playing musical chairs over hot coals. Traditional 40-hour week, full-time jobs are becoming scarce. Meanwhile, technology is removing chairs from the game. Cars can already drive themselves. But it's not just taxi and truck drivers who should be worried. It's fast food workers, retail associates, farmers, lawyers, writers, accountants, doctors, even animators like me. All sorts of jobs can now be done in part or entirely by machines. No matter how educated we get, at some point we can't compete with their speed or cost. It should be great if we have more time, but the way our system's set up, we're in for a lot of pain. So a lot of people like me think we should have a universal basic income. It would be something like $1,000 a month, and let us live with dignity, regardless of work status. It would reduce stress and insecurity, and give us the time to focus on work that has more purpose and meaning. It'd be like a secure floor over the hot coals. Might feel wrong, giving out money with no strings attached. Some think people might stop working altogether. They could spend it all on drugs or alcohol, or just play video games all day. But let's look at the evidence. Experiments and programs providing direct cash transfers have been conducted all over the world. They show that as people's economic security improves, they continue to work. More start their own businesses. Crime rates drop, health outcomes improve, more people finish school, and people are able to stay housed. Now before you call me a dirty communist in the comments section, let's go back to 1970, when 80% of Americans were for a basic income. Advocates included Martin Luther King Jr., Milton Friedman, John Kenneth Galbraith, church groups, labor unions, 1,200 economists, and President Nixon himself. These economists sent him a letter saying the country will not have met its responsibility until everyone in the nation is assured an income no less than the officially recognized definition of poverty. The cost would be substantial, but well within the country's economic and fiscal capacity. Nixon's Family Assistance Plan passed the House, but was blocked in the Senate by Republicans who said it cost too much, and Democrats who said the amount wasn't high enough. Eventually, a study came out saying basic income increased divorce. Turned out the numbers were wrong and divorce rates don't really change, but it was too late. There was a moral panic about women having too much freedom, and we haven't heard much about it since. But there is an example of basic income already happening in America. The Alaska Permanent Fund was created in 1976 from revenue generated from state land. The fund recognizes each Alaskan as a co-owner of these natural resources, and it pays all residents a dividend between $1,000 and $2,000 a year. It's widely popular, and Alaska is among the most equal of U.S. states, with the lowest rates of poverty and the highest well-being index scores. economists from across the political spectrum agree that basic income is affordable. One way to do it is to have a negative income tax, where income is supplemented to a certain level, and benefits gradually taper off as you earn more. This is the model that almost happened in the 70s, and is being tested in Ontario right now. Another way to do it would be to have a universal basic income, where everyone gets something like $1,000 a month. This is the model I prefer, because it avoids the means testing of what the income cutoff should be, and it can cost the same as a negative income tax. Either way, bringing everyone in America above the poverty line amounts to a $900 billion transfer from the richest 20% to the rest of us. When people are desperate, crime rates go up, education rates drop, and healthcare costs rise. It's not a magic bullet that's going to solve everything, but by investing in a basic income, we save on these massive costs before they start, and won't have to worry so much when our jobs can be done by machines. Please add your voice to the growing movement for a basic income, and start conversations with your family, friends, colleagues, and elected representatives. It's time for a universal basic income.
Now, one of the answers, it seems to me, is a guaranteed annual income, a guaranteed minimum income for all people and for all families of our country. It seems to me
the freedom dividend is universal basic income by a different name, just tests better. So we're going with the freedom dividend. Where every American adult gets $1,000 a month. Free and clear, you get it, I get it. It doesn't matter if you're working, how much you make, we don't care. You're a citizen, you're an adult, $1,000 a month. Now, the cost of that is about $2 trillion per year. Now, for reference, our economy is now $19 trillion. And it's grown $4 trillion in the last 10 years alone. We are the richest, most advanced society in the history of the world, and we can easily afford $1,000 a month. So the federal budget right now is $4 trillion, so $2 trillion seems like a very big add. But the great thing about it, this is not a government program, it's just circulating money back to citizens so that we can buy things for our children, repair our cars, go to school, start a business, whatever we want to do. So this $2 trillion, the way it's broken up is that we currently spend between $500 and $600 billion on welfare, income support, disability, et cetera.
Current welfare programs are about $500 to $600 billion.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're going to give everyone $1,000 a month, but they're already getting, let's say, $1,000 in current benefits, then you say, okay, you're already getting it, you're set.
Okay.
And so this $500 to $600 billion decreases the cost of the freedom dividend by about 25%.
Okay, down to $1.5 trillion.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the big change you have to make is that right now our income tax system is going to be really terrible at generating revenue from AI software machines because they're going to do more and more work, but the beneficiaries tend to be really big tech companies that don't pay a really high tax rate at all.
You wrote in your book that Apple, Microsoft, and Google have tens of billions to hundreds of billions of dollars that they run through offshore accounts.
yeah, they do. Ireland's a particular favorite. And so they just have all this money parked offshore because they can easily just assign revenue to various places. And so even as the big winners in this AI revolution make more money, it's very unlikely that the US government or society is going to see a lot of that. So what we have to do is we have to adopt a value-added tax, which is something that every other industrialized country in the world has except for us. So it's us modernizing and getting with the program. And because our economy is so large, a value-added tax at half the average European level would generate about $800 billion in revenue.
So Europe's about 20% value-added tax.
Yeah, and so
what does that look like then for like a company like Apple then?
So what would happen is that Apple would be paying a value-added tax at every step of the production process, and then their costs go up by about that amount, total amount.
So about 20% more for a MacBook or an iPhone.
Well, it'd be about 10%, though traditionally companies end up eating some part of that and then passing some of it along to consumers. So it could be that that the price of the iPad or whatever goes up like 8% or something along those lines. But keep in mind, though, you've gotten $1,000 extra a month, and so has everyone else. And so everyone, like the bottom 94% of the U.S. population will end up with an increase in purchasing power.
But then the question then is, if the items are costing more money, if there is that slight inflation of the cost of the items, then how much is that offset this $1,000 a month that I'm making? Yeah, it'll give me the ability to maybe buy it, but then these normal items like food and water and electricity are how much have they went up, and how much does that take away from my $1,000 that I'm earning?
Well, it just depends upon how much you consume, and that's one of the beauties of this system, is that the average American is consuming nowhere close to the threshold where they would lose. Again, the bottom 94% of Americans would see an increase in purchasing power. You need to consume an awful lot in order to have the VAT be more than $1,000 a month. And if you're at that apex of society, then that's great. It's great for you. Even the wealthy people I know, and I do know some wealthy people, they prefer a consumption tax regime to something like a wealth tax or even higher income taxes, because what they'll say is, look, I can control my consumption. I can get a slightly smaller yacht or jet or whatever, but I can't control my wealth. And so if you tax my wealth, it's going to make me really mad. But if you tax my consumption, then I'll be like, yeah, that's fine. And again, every other major industrialized country already has it, some at twice the level. So this is something that people are very, very accustomed to.
So value-added tax taxes consumption, which is why people are more okay with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so value-added tax at half the European level gets you 800 billion. So that plus the 500 billion gets you up to about 1.3 trillion.
Out of the two.
Out of the two.
Yeah.
Now here's the beauty of it, is that if you give people $1,000 a month, they're going to spend it. Right now, 59% of Americans can't afford an unexpected $500 bill. Everyone's really cash strapped and living paycheck to paycheck. So with an extra $1,000,
us included, support on patreon.com. The link is below.
Yeah,
support
sure.
Yang 2020.
Yeah, I mean, let's do it. It's going to help creatives, artists, entrepreneurs. The Freedom Dividend will be the greatest catalyst to entrepreneurship and creativity in the history of the world. So you put $1,000 a month into people's hands, they're going to spend it, they're going to create things, and it's going to create 4.5 million new jobs and grow the economy by 13% or 2.5 trillion, according to the Roosevelt Institute that modeled this out. So it's going to be this incredible boom, and the US government gets back about 500 billion of that in new revenue, because if the economy booms by 2.5 trillion, of course, the government's going to get its fair share. So that gets you up to 90% of the cost of the Freedom Dividend. And then you get the last couple hundred billion from cost savings to healthcare, incarceration, homelessness services. It gets very expensive when people hit our institutions.
Yeah.
There's one study that showed that if you give a poor family $1, it'll save us $7. So keeping people functional with $1,000 a month actually is going to be this incredible value multiplier. Mental health will improve, graduation rates will rise, nutrition gets better, like all of these things that will be incredible value adds. And you know what goes down? Hospital visits, domestic violence, criminality, like all of these things. So it pays for itself. And what I'm suggesting isn't even aggressive. Like you could say, hey, we're really going to like create this, which we will. But even if you're conservative, this thing's very affordable.